Welcome back. In the previous DAX, we learned what data model is and how to create relationships. And in this DAX, we'll look at an introduction to data analytics expressions, also known as DAX. Before we get started, I'm simply going to save this our model. Okay? So I'll click on save. And here we have it. You can also save by clicking on this button above the file menu. Okay? Now, data analysis expressions known as DAX is Power BI's formula language. You can add calculated columns and measures to your model using DAX. There are two ways to use DAX. The first is to create calculated columns in your table, and the second is to create measures to be used in visuals. Let's start with calculated columns. I'm going to be working with the sales table. Okay, let's say that's of 2019. Okay, now we have our preview. Calculated columns allows you to add new columns with formula to your tables, and they refer to the entire table or columns. Calculated columns also generate new values for each rows, which are visible within the tables in the data view of Power BI. Okay. Also, calculated columns are great for defining properties based on information in each row. Do not use calculated columns to aggregate or try to calculate numerical values. Instead, use measures. Okay. So measures are good for if you want to get values used in visualization. Typically, calculated columns are used for filtering data, giving you new fields, okay, that you can use to create those filters. Now let's create a calculated column for this quantity type, just like what we did in our previous task. Okay, so what I will do is to right click on this and select new column. Okay, so we have our new column right here. And in the formula bar, I'm going to write a DAX. That is a data analysis expression. So I'm going to type quantity type equal. Now what I'm trying to do is just like the previous task, but in this case, we are typing it ourselves. So if use the tab key to bring up the if statement, other quantity. You can see that Power BI automatically brings up the table with other quantity. So navigating to other quantity and selecting it. So if other quantity is greater than 1, comma, in quotes, multiple items. Okay? Else, single items. Single item. Okay? Then I close my quotes. Then I hit enter. Okay? Now you can see we have a new column with the new logic. Okay? So this formula is the same logic as the one used in the previous column. The one we used in conditional columns. But this time we are typing it ourselves. So that is how calculated columns work in Power BI. Okay? Now let's quickly look at measures. Measures are DAX formulas used to generate new calculated values. And measure values are not visible within a table, unlike calculated columns. They may be seen within a visualization. You can see it here, but not in a table. So they can be used to visualize like in a chart or matrix. While calculated columns are evaluated based on row context, measures are evaluated based on filter. Now we use measures when we need to aggregate. Talking about you need to use sum, product, and so on. And to add measures or columns, there are two ways you can do this. So you can select by right-clicking to add new measure or new column. Or you simply head over to the table tools and you can see new measure or new column. You can also get that from the home tab. Okay. So you can select new measure or new column from the home tab. Okay. Now let's create a new measure. To create a new measure, I'm simply going to right click and select new measure. Okay. Selecting new measure. What I want to do is to sum the other quantity to be used in visualization. Okay. Now it opens up the new measure, but Notice that it's not seen in the table. It does not create a table or a column in the table. That is how measure works. It is not visible within the table. So I'm simply going to rename this total order quantity. Okay, total order quantity. And what I want to do is to use an aggregate, which is the sum function. So type in the sum function. I want to sum the order quantity. Now you can see that Power BI brought up all the columns and tables. So navigating to order quantity, or you can simply type to bring up the order quantity column. So I'll just go ahead and type order quantity. And it will filter all columns with order quantity. And what I'm looking for is that of 2019, sales 2019. So selecting, double clicking to select. Okay. Then I close parenthesis. And I hit enter. Okay. Now you can see the measure showing here. It's not showing in the table. Okay. Because it's not visible within the table. But you can see it here and you can be able to use it to visualize. So that is it on calculated columns and measures. So in this task, you learned a brief introduction to DAX. And in the next task, we will start creating visualizations.